Live from the virtual Chicagoland Speedway, we welcome race fans one and all to Joliet, Illinois for tonight's running of the iRacing Stock Car Association Tucson Sound Art Cup Series for round number 11 on the first and only season of 2021 for this Saturday Night Cup Series and your running of the AutoZone 200 here for the Chicagoland Speedway. My name is Nola Rempel. Alfonso Nixon will be joining me in just a few moments here with Rob Mellick down behind the cameras for tonight's presentation. It's a bit of a newer facility, one that we don't visit all too often on the Cup Series schedule. Of course, we got some new faces joining us as well. We'll get into all of that in just a moment, but for now, why don't we talk championship points? It is still a bit of a growing gap between Chris Johnson and Kenny Powell, and at the moment, it is only those two drivers, G&G teammates, in contention for a championship here today. 49 points separate Chris Johnson and Kenny Powell coming into tonight's race, and of course, that does mean that should Chris Johnson pull out another 9 points over Kenny Powell, this race will be firmly in the hands of the number 48 Gas and Go Racing driver. So he's definitely looking for the best possible outcome tonight, which would be, of course, to score all 58 points on the night, which will almost certainly guarantee himself a championship coming into the season finale over at the Richmond International Raceway in just 1 week's time. So qualifying presently underway. 2.5 minutes down in this 5-minute session. And then let's talk about some of the newer faces coming into tonight's race, shall we? Noah Betts, of course, a frequent runner in the Butt Kicker Cup Series, though he is making his first ever start here in the Tucson Sound Art Cup Series. John Mullins returns. We don't see him around too often. He's currently sitting 9th fastest on the boards. A lot of the JBR crew are back as well. You got guys like Joshua Watson and Brian Watson that are now back in the mix of this as well. Two new names, though, that are coming into this that have not made starts at all in the ISCA making their first starts tonight. One, Logan Hamilton, and one, Kyle Green. Hamilton currently sitting 2nd fastest on the boards. And I have to have some quite the experience with both Hamilton and Green coming into tonight's race. And I can tell you right now, those are two drivers that are definitely fast, especially Logan Hamilton. He is on the younger side, but that does not mean he does not know how to handle a race car. Kyle Green, of course, is a guy that can absolutely dominate a racetrack if you give him the right car to do so. Looks like he'll be opting, though, not to take qualifying laps this qualifying session. It's an interesting call from Mr. Green. We'll have to see where that strategy leads him throughout the course of this race. Some drivers, sometimes want to pick their way up through the order, and I cannot exactly fault Kyle for wanting to just take it easy and relax a little bit. It's your first start with a new league. Maybe will take your time. Settle back a little bit, get to know some of the drivers you could be racing around going forward. Logan Hamilton, of course, a bit of a number error on himself on his machine. Of course, running the number 12 on the car, scored as the 89. I believe that's going to be updated so he was scored as the 12 for the next week's race as well over at the 3/4 mile short track. So you can watch at the moment. That is, at the moment, I believe, Adrian Watts throwing his number 08 Chevrolet around the circuit. And he is currently sitting 6th fastest on the board, just putting down a 29.955. That almost ties him 1,000th up from one Josh Schaffner. So 30 seconds left in qualifying. And Al, I have to say, this could be one heck of a race coming up for us for 134 laps.
Absolutely, Nolan. I hope that it is. I think the biggest key is going to be how many guys had time to dial in their setups. Because on this race, I think we're probably going to see 2 and 3 wide on the start, and then driver's going to want that track position because the key thing is going to be is getting out front, being able to kind of call your own pace.
And just like that, qualifying comes to a close. We'll take a quick step away. It is now time for the national anthem.
Race fans, it is time for those most famous words in motorsports.
Driver, start your engine!
And welcome back to the Chicagoland Speedway for your running of the AutoZone 200. Let's take a rundown through your Tucson Sound Art starting grid. No bits, and newcomer Logan Hamilton lined it up on the front row. Joshua Watson sits down in third place with Chris Severa beside him in fourth. Greg Wyszynski sits in fifth place with Richard Elliott in sixth for row number 3. Row 4 holds Adrian Watts and Josh Schaffner. Kenny Powell and Chris Johnson, the 2 points rivals at the moment coming into this race, and teammates lining it up here, Al, on row number 5.
Darren Mullins and Frank Flores, row 6. Brian Watson, Gary Adamson, row 7. Paul Olsen and Pedro Enrique going to be in row 8 with Kyle Green rounding out the field.
17 cars getting set to get this thing underway. Olsen, Enrique, and Kyle Green all opting not to take times. They're going to start this race from the tail end of the field, but Kyle Green is going to be a force to be reckoned with here. He was 4th fastest in practice, which could mean it could be a rather entertaining race for Kyle Green as he looks to potentially work his way up through the field. So on the front row, you've got technically 2 newcomers. Bitts has never been a start in this series, but he's well accustomed already to the way we run things over here with the Thursday night Butt Kicker Cup series. Logan Hamilton, of course, a newcomer altogether to the series, and good friends with guys like Kyle Green and Frank Flores, so we could be having an interesting race ahead of us here. No doubt Hamilton is going to be wanted to be one of those guys that pulls away early on from the field and try to maybe get a solid establishing position here and maybe show that he is capable of running for a race wins and potentially championships going forward. Let's take a look at some of the race facts here tonight. 86 degrees Fahrenheit on the track with 78 in the air. 3 stages as always over the course of the night. Stage 1 ends on lap number 30 with stage 2 at the end of 65. Fuel window roughly 47 laps. Of course, that all means, as always, fuel not going to be a factor until stage number 3. Winds just off to the south about 7 miles an hour, so it is relatively, you got a little bit of a calm breeze out there on the track, but nothing these drivers are going to have to be too concerned about here, Al.
Yeah, and I definitely understand those guys that are out in the start in the back. This is going to be one of those races where you're just going to have to figure out where everybody finds their groove, and I just think we're going to see probably a little 3 wide going into turn 1 as people try to secure those slots. So this is going to be an exciting race, no doubt.
So rounding through turns 1 and 2 at the moment and down this curve back straight. One of the identifying features of the Chicagoland Speedways, you never really stop turning at this track. There's always a slight bend that you have to worry about. What do you think? Who do you think are some of the drivers we need to potentially keep an eye out for tonight as we get set to go race for 134 laps?
I'm definitely going to watch Chris Johnson. He's always going to be a guy that's going to give a very good show. It's going to be interesting to see how some of the younger drivers like Logan, how he finds his rhythm as we go around this 1.5 mile track. And also, Paul Olsen is going to be also somebody that I'm going to watch just because he's got he should have a chip on his shoulder, after last week. So
out of turn number 4, pace cars down and in, leaving it in the hands of Noah Bitts. Barney the Flagman going to wave the green flag, and we say, let's go racing from the Chicagoland Speedway. Hamilton anticipates the jump perfectly from Noah Bitts, and already has got a run down to turn number 1. It's not going to be enough, though, to take the lead away through turn 1. Noah Bitts able to hang with it. He could clear off of turn 2 if he can just get the momentum he needs. It's not going to happen, though. Logan Hamilton looking to do battle around the outside line. Hamilton into turn 3, has the upper hand already, running to the top line right by the wall, trying to utilize all the momentum he can, but there's no speed there for now. Ends up nearly gets into with Joshua Watson out of turn 4, but Noah Bitts leads the opening lap from Chicago.
What an exciting first lap. But like I said, that 3 wide racing, that's what we're going to look for. Now we're going to watch these guys try to find their race rhythm and just stretch it out a little bit.
And now you can see Joshua Watson moving up past Logan Hamilton, squeezing the number 12 out to the outside wall. Adrian Watts just tucked into the mix of this as well. And the JBR Chevrolet trying to find a way through. And just behind, how about Kenny Powell working his way out to the field in his G&G Toyota Camry. Powell is out a flying start. 7th place for him. Chris Johnson has slipped so far backwards, now down into the final 3 positions. So your current points leader in a terrible situation at the moment as Kenny Powell looks set to potentially start closing down that points gap with 2 races to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Like I said, you know, we're 3 laps into this. Guys are going to be really trying to conserve the tires, you know, just trying to feel everything out, watching the other drivers, trying to figure out what's the fastest line. Some guys prefer the outside. Some guys want to come on the inside. Also, you're going to watch guys that try to take that very, very low line there by the start-finish line. I think, personally, that's going to even eat some tires up. I don't know. What do you think?
And now we got Pedro Henrique just in the mix of this. He's losing out spot to Josh Chavda. Here comes Chris Severa. He has to check up in the Rocket Racing setups number 62 to avoid running over Pedro Henrique. And the G&G driver going to able to hang with it here, though. He has a bit of damage now on the right front, pushing up towards Frank Flores on the outside line. Severa going to hang tough, though. He'll take the inside lane away. Look at Gary Adamson just up the road, having a run on Pedro Henrique. He'll find his way to the inside of turn 2. Henrique is going to try to fight back through the, turn 3, down the back, straight away the 41 Ford Mustang, trying to hang it high, wide, and handsome. Not going to happen this time, though. Adamson tucks that one in line. He has secured now 11th place.
Yeah, it's interesting how everybody's lining up, trying to get that draft. So it's like we're going to see a little single file racing here for a little while.
For a little while, but for how long, I think is the big ticket question everybody's asking here at the moment. The battle's starting to pick up for the race lead, by the way, as Joshua Watson has caught up to the frontline driver, new frontline driver of Noah Bitts. And looking high, and Bitts looking to cover off the run. Watson cuts back down to the low side behind. Logan Hamilton losing out on 3rd place now to Adrian Watts potentially. So the newcomer started second, starting to slip backwards a little bit as Adrian Watts going to pick up 3rd around the outside line. Making it JVR Chevrolets in 2nd and 3rd. And they're getting set to gang up on the new frontline driver of Noah Bitts.
Just trying to bide his time at this point, just hoping that these guys will give him a little bit of a break, but I don't think it's going to be in the cards for him this evening.
Bitts is one of those drivers we've seen be a lot better over the longer runs than he is over the shorter runs. So at the moment, he has got to defend. He has got to try to keep Watson behind and maybe back him off into Adrian Watson, potentially cause some team calamity. And now you can see, though, Joshua Watson has found the outside lane, and he's there out of turn 4. And Joshua Watson is going to go to the point. He'll lead this latest lap. And Joshua Watson now takes the lead away into turn number 1. Bitts still looking to fight this one out, though, holding the inside line. But he won't be able to get a good drive out of turn 2. That's going to allow Josh Watson to potentially clear for the race lead down the back straightaway. But it's not as good a run as one might expect. It's still there. And looking to hang with it. Josh Watson, though, you imagine through 3 and 4, he'll have this spot secured.
Yeah, but the best thing for Adrian Watson, the guys behind him, is the longer these guys are running side by side, you know, having to check up a little bit on our lines, the faster these guys are actually able to close that lead a little bit.
And Josh Watson going to move up to the outside line, and I think this time clears Noah Bitts for the race lead. Adrian Watson, Logan Hamilton looking to get into the mix of this as well. Here comes Adrian Watts looking to the inside line, and Noah Bitts going for 2nd place. Non-stop action from Chicagoland Speedway for the AutoZone 200. Hamilton jumping to the apron. He's trying to make up spots once again, trying to go for 3rd. He's going to kind of bobble him as he comes back up onto the track, and that cost him a bit of speed entering turn number 1. So Hamilton going to lose out potentially in this fight for 3rd. He's not going to stop him, though, from hanging with it. I think, though, Adrian Watts has just got too much speed around the outside to contend with at the moment.
Yes, he's going to fall back into that draft. That's, you know, he's just going to sit back, take his time, and then before you know it, I think he's actually going to get back up in there and make his nose seen.
Sometimes you have to use a little bit of patience, right, if you want to properly get yourself up a couple of positions, especially at these mile-and-a-halves where it can be so difficult to pass as you get further into a run. And now you can see Hamilton looking to follow Adrian Watson on the outside lane, I think trying to pick up whatever draft he can from the 08 JBR Chevrolet at the moment, which is not a bad idea, right? If you know the guys in front of you are a little bit quicker, try to learn something from them, right? Take their lines and see if you can potentially charge up towards the front end. So I have to see what that Tucson Sound Art number 12 Chevrolet is able to do as he gets set to continue to battle it out here for these podium positions. Looking just a little ways further down the order, Kenny Powell under fire from Brian Watson in the battle for 6th place. Watson taking this one around the outside lane in one of the other JBR machines. This one a Mustang instead of the other two, which are Chevys. And of course, you got Powell still in the lone Toyota Camry in this field on the bottom side, but it's not going to do too much good for him as Brian Watson clears out of turn 4.
Yeah, I like that right now. It's like one of those best golf moves, you know, you just kind of go into school on the guy's line for free, you know, maybe pick up a second or a tenth of a second or so, you know, from everybody, just depending on how it's working out.
And an interesting moment here from John Mullins, the 64 Chevrolet, in pit road for potential green flag pit stops. I wouldn't be exactly sure why this is happening for the number 64 machine, but he is out of the race car at this point in time, so potential technical issues at the moment for Darren Mullins would see him dropping down and out of this race as he is now 1 down, looking to go several laps down if it doesn't get back in that car in a hurry. So you still see these drivers doing a great job so far, having given us this longer green flag run. The field's starting to spread out just a little bit as we're used to seeing in races such as these. We don't get that early green flag run. How about Josh Schaffner and Chris Johnson looking to tango? Chris Johnson has not had a great start to this race at all. He comes into this race at 49 points clear of Kenny Powell. But I think it is worth noting that if he just needs to gain 9 points on Powell, and then he's got this championship locked out with one more race to go at Richmond just next week. Schaffner, though, is looking to fight this one out on the outside line, though, and Powell at the moment sits ahead of Chris Johnson. He's trying to get this points gap closed back in, and right now, it's not going well for your points leader.
Oh, it's okay. Plenty of racing left, man. I think Johnson's going to be just fine. Once he gets his set up, lined up, he's going to be okay.
Well, fingers crossed that he'll be able to have himself a better run later on throughout the course of the night. Once again, some guys are more set out for a longer run, and Chris Johnson is one of those drivers that definitely likes it if these races go a bit further green. I think he might have just gotten a bit loose on the opening lap, and that's what caused him to drop 10th place all the way back to 15th, and he's still been struggling to work his way back up ever since. As finally Josh Schaffner clears for 9th place. Up the road, Greg Wyszynski is looking to tango with Kenny Powell as well entering turn number 1. So a lot of the G&G drivers looking to do battle with each other at the moment on course.
If nothing else, just for good racing.
Good racing they are providing, to say the very least. How about Kenny Powell going back around the outside of Brian Watson? Now the 84 Mustang took Kenny Powell around the outside line through 3 and 4 a few laps ago. And now Powell looking to battle back out of turn 4. This is the current battle for 5th place on the boards, and Powell trying to sweep around the outside line of 1 and 2. He got the drive down for 1 and 2, and I think does get him this time around for through 1 and 2. So Brian Watson have to tuck in line. He'll slide up in front of Greg Wyszynski. That leaves Brian Watson now down in 6th place. Powell picks up 5th.
Powell making his way into the top 5. You know, he's actually seems to be running pretty good this evening. So as long as he can put a little distance between himself and Johnson, that's just going to work out in his favor. And I like the fact that his car seems to be coming to him as we got 20 laps on these tires.
And 20 laps on these tires means 10 laps to go in stage number 1. And for those that might not be too familiar with the way stages work at the moment, of course, pit road closes 2 laps prior to the stage ending. And the caution comes out once 10th place has crossed the start-finish line. It is 5 points for a stage win, 4.5 for 2nd place, 4 for 3rd, 3.5 for 4th, and so on and so forth. Down to 10th place, receives just half a point. Back to Frank Flores at the moment. He's in a bit of a fight with Chris Severa at the moment. Paul Olsen in the mix of this as well. Frank Flores comes into this race third place in points, but he has not had the best of runs in the last few races, right? I think he kind of was able to get up there really early on into a good points span position now because there wasn't a lot of people when this season first started off, right? But you get more drivers and you start to figure out where your pace really sits compared to some of the faster guys on track, such as Noah Bitts and Joshua Watson, who are now side by side for the race lead in 1 and 2. And Joshua Watson looks like he's held on to first place for now. Bitt's going to fall back to second and could lose out third here if one Adrian Watts has his way. That'd make it a JBR 1-2, which would be a great situation for them as Noah Bitts, your pole sitter, is going to slip back to third place. Might have backed off a bit to allow Adrian Watts to get that spot up on him. So Bitts falls down to the third position now in just one lap. Good news is a lot of racing left to go, and that's still a solid 4.5 points that Bitts is going to walk away from in stage 1, which is definitely something that could be a game changer in these various little points battles going on up and down with 2 races to go.
Yeah, I don't think he's content just to sit back in third place at all, as he's just going to continue to press the issue so he can even move up even higher in the standings right now.
Another driver I want to point out that has brought it down pit road, this about 6 laps ago, was Pedro Henrique, who is now in the lane, leaving us with just 15 cars out on the racing surface. There's the newcomer, Logan Hamilton, fighting it out with Kenny Powell to the battle for 4th and 5th. Hamilton lost touch with this leading group and now starting to really hold up these guys in behind him. Kenny Powell having to work on the outside lane here to try to get around Hamilton, but Hamilton's parking that thing right in the middle of the track, trying to keep everybody behind him, but he has got 4 other drivers that are all looking hungry to pick up some positions here. 6 laps to go in stage 1. Hamilton, I imagine, is going to lose a couple more places yet before stage 1 comes to a close.
Yeah, so maybe he burned his stuff up a little quicker than he wanted to. Now he's having to deal with the aftermath of that, it looks like.
Did a good job on holding the outside lane through 1 and 2, and that allows for Kenny Powell to... Oh, Powell glances off the wall, and he'll shuffle down in the middle of the track. That will give Hamilton a little bit of breathing space up the road. Wachinski and Brian Watson still are side by side in behind this grouping as a result of that checkup. So, Wachinski looking to work the inside lane, and Brian Watson's JBR Mustang runs the top side. You got Richard Elliott. We haven't talked about Elliott a whole lot this race, but the 0-2 JBR Chevrolet kind of tucked in the middle line at the moment, trying to see if he can maybe split the middle. He'll work his way around the outside lane of Greg Wachinski through 3 and 4 this time by, but it's not going to go anywhere. Wachinski will hold on to that position, but Powell has caught up to him. Oh, he turns, look at Hamilton! Hamilton slides into the apron and hang on to it, and Hamilton wrestles a car back underneath him. A beautiful save for the number 12 Tucson Sound Art Chevrolet. 90 degrees sideways out, and he brought that thing back under him.
Yeah, Powell probably just got, tired of being behind him a little bit, so you're going to have that, that chrome horn kind of maybe.
I think that was just an incident where Kenny Powell had a bit too much of a run than he knew what to do with, and unfortunately Hamilton just got caught in the middle. Good news for Hamilton, long way to go, and no damage on that car other than some smoked up Goodyears. So Logan Hamilton will be able to come back at this one and fight another day. Battle for the lead is still on. Noah Bitts and Joshua Watson looking to tango. And you've got yourself now 2 laps to go at the line. Pit road closes this time by. And Joshua Watson looks to see if he can come away with the stage win.
Going to be interesting how Elliott handles this going forward. Was it just an incidental racing act, or maybe something that they could have to hatch out?
And so 1.5 laps to go. Once again, Bitts up the inside. This time has the nose ahead through 3 and 4. The battle for the stage 1 win is on. Watson pulling the top side. Bitts going to clear himself. Just slides up in front of Joshua Watson to take the race lead away. And the front line 87 is going to manage to hang tough with it. Final lap now in stage number 1.
I think the one car is going to try to get a run on the inside best he can.
Fingers crossed. Joshua Watts still has one more corner he's going to have to navigate. I don't think he's going to be able to get there, though. I think Noah Bitts made the move stick in 3 and 4. So coming out of turn 4, this time by Watson. Can't get there. Noah Bitts will win stage number 1. And that leaves it a pretty heads-up drag race just in behind him for the rest of the spots, which is going to make it Watson 3rd, Josh Watson 2nd, Adrian Watts 3rd, Powell 4th, Watson 5th, Richard Elliott in 6th place with Greg Wychinski in 7th, Chris Johnson 8th, Schaffner and Kyle Green round out your top 10. So caution flies for the first stage on the night. We'll take a quick step away. We'll be back with more racing action for the AutoZone 200 right after this.
There are moments that surprise and delight the mind and the senses. Introducing SoundArt, the world's first truly customizable, concealed, flat panel art speaker system. A revolutionary combination of incredible sound delivered from your most meaningful pictures. When art and technology intersect, there is a seamless blend of creativity and function.
Come alive in the streetlight, pulling at the stars in the moonlight. Every time I feel you close.
With SoundArt, anyone can print their own artwork or pick from numerous licensed artwork that we have. The possibilities are limitless. Enjoy beautiful and amazing sound throughout your home. The entire surface of your artwork generates incredibly robust sound. Your art never sounded so good.
Yellow flag pit stops underway under this first competition caution on the night. Noah Bitts takes them down. 4 tires and fuel is going to be a unanimous call for drivers everywhere throughout this field. Bitts led them down. Will he also be the first driver to lead them off of pit road? It is an easy yes for the number 87 frontline driver. And on that note, why don't we see if we can't maybe bring your Stage 1 winner out. We'll give a bit of a chat here to Noah Bitts. Noah, this is Nolan Rempel up at the broadcast booth. You got a copy?
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
That's going well for us, and it seems to certainly be going well for you down there on track as you come away with a Stage 1 win.
Yeah, that was a pretty fun stage. It was good battling all the way through.
Joshua Watson seems to be mighty quick out there. You think he'll be able to keep him at bay for the second stage as well?
I think a few more laps on the next stage should be working out in my favor. It's really hard to pass someone here, especially when they're on the high side. So I just gotta make my move and make it stick, and we'll see what happens.
Well, fingers crossed you'll be finding yourself up at the front of this thing before long, and that you'll be able to maintain that lead to potentially come away with a second stage win on the night. Before I let you go, though, Noah, anybody you'd like to shout out for your Frontline Esports number 87?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Frontline for letting me in. It's a good group of guys. I'd like to thank Abruzzi for sponsoring the car, and hopefully I can bring us home to victory lane for them.
And thank you, Noah, for taking the chance to come on up here and join us in the broadcast booth. Congrats on a Stage 1 win. Best of luck in Stage 2.
Thanks. Hope to talk to you again.
That was Noah Bitts bringing it home for a victory and 5 extra bonus points for the Frontline Abruzzi number 87. And he'll be set to see if he can potentially keep Joshua Watson at bay for the whole entirety of this second stage. So let's take a quick rundown as your order sits out of pit road. It is Noah Bitts, Joshua Watson, Adrian Watts, Brian Watson, Richard Elliott, Greg Wychinski. Chris Johnson is in 7th place with Kyle Green up to 8th, Schaffner 9th, Kenny Powell, interestingly enough, has dropped all the way down to 10th place with a 20-second pit stop. I imagine potentially facing damage after contact with Logan Hamilton. Hamilton, speed of which is down to 12th, with Adams just in front of him in 11th. That leaves Flores in 13th, Olsen 14th, Chris Vera 15th place, Pedro Henrique, and Darren Mullins both pulled it down to pit road early in stage number 1. They're both now out of this race. So I believe coming to 1 to green this time by here, Al, and an exciting stage 1. I imagine we're ready to do it all over again for stage 2.
Yeah, no doubt Powell had, he'd also made contact with the wall as well as Elliott, so that probably explains the longer than expected pit stop for him. But definitely an exciting stage 1, and I think a lot of these guys now have got the information they need on whether or not to save tires early or go ahead and let it run out.
You heard No Bits mention it as well. It is so difficult to pass at this track, and it's easy to see why, right? I mean, you got the banking that always works against you. Not to mention, you got that outside lane that can always run with a little bit of extra speed thanks to the little bit of a curve you got down this back straightaway. And that makes it really difficult to initiate a pass on the inside line. But if you're fast enough that you can get there on the outside, you should be able to take the spot away in the next lap or so.
Yeah, absolutely. The key with this track is obviously not losing momentum. You can carry so much speed, you know, when you have fresh tires, but as the time goes on and the tires wear off, then you know it's about throttle management.
So coming around through turn number 4, the iRacing safety car going to pull this thing down to pit road. And once again, Noah Bitts, your control car, we get set to go racing again here for the AutoZone 200 at the Chicagoland Speedway. Green flag waves, and we are back with it. Watson getting away well with Noah Bitts. The top two cleared by a country mile from 3rd and 4th, side by side, just behind them.
That side-by-side racing is definitely going to allow these lead two drivers to go ahead and stretch their legs out. I think
trouble! Richard Elliott gets into it. Kyle Green is there. Kenny Powell in the mix as well. And that will put us under caution number 1 of the night. And unfortunately, Kyle Green getting mixed up in this one. And a little bit of contact, I think, for the 0-2 caused the 76 to ride up and over his front hood. That puts us under caution for the second time on the night, but first time for an actual caution for a crash.
You know, you got a little bit of that 3-wide racing that we expected to see once we started going back on. You know, and cautions breed cautions. Once people get stacked up, it's going to be kind of hard to figure out where you're going to end up.
You saw right there, right? I mean, that was just an unfortunate situation for Kyle Green, who could have done nothing to avoid that one. That was, I hate to say it, but I mean, Richard Elliott tried to clear himself. Didn't realize there was so little space to work with up on the top side, and he kind of did that to himself. I know Kenny Powell got into that mess big time, and Frank Flores even got turned around on the inside lane as well. I find it actually interesting that Frank Flores got into this. I didn't think he was, actually. Ow, I see what happened. Frank Flores had to crank that wheel hard left to avoid getting into the mess. Unfortunately, got loose himself as a result, and he slammed the inside wall.
Just not what any of these guys wanted or needed at this point in the race. You know, we're so early into the racing, and with damage here, it's just really it's going to do you in pretty hard.
So under this caution flag, and a lot of drivers are down to pit road to get damage fixed. I know that Kenny Powell is definitely among them. Joshua Watson is in as well. Richard Elliott is in. Unsurprisingly, Kyle Green is in. Same story with Frank Flores just up the road. So a lot of drivers now damaged as a result of that one. It's again another case of, right, you know, only have the 1 or 2 cars that get spun around, but about 6 or 7 cars are actually going to have damage because of all the checking up that's going to take place because of that. And I mean, you have to remember, I get it, you're 3 wide, right? You want to leave room for the guy on the inside. But at the same time, you have to always be wary of the guy that's your outside as well, because they don't have anywhere to go. I mean, the guy on the inside, they got infield, they have grass and everything. If you squeeze them down, the guy on the outside, he's just got a concrete wall to meet him.
Well, you know, one of I guess the silver lining in this is you get a little bit longer pit lap, so that would allow you to fix more damage than, say, last week or even next week. You know, Nashville's short, Richmond's a short track. This track right here, although it's really aerodynamically dependent, it still allows guys like Powell, you know, so he'll be able to get as much of his damage fixed and possibly even stay on the lead lap.
He will do, to say the very least. So, still under this caution flag for the second time tonight. I want to take one quick step away. We'll be back in a few moments.
Your car is everything. Your taxi, your moving van, your baby. And for over 30 years, AutoZone has had the parts you can count on to keep it going. But parts are just part of what we do. We're part buddy, part mentor, part of the American way of doing things. So whether you're Mr. DIY or a master mechanic, AutoZone has your back. Parts are just part of what we do.
Get in the zone.
AutoZone.
To the caution flag here at the Chicagoland Speedway for the AutoZone 200 for round number 11 of the iRacing Stock Car Association Tucson Sound Art Cup Series. I believe 1 to green this time by for the iRacing safety car. We get set to stack them up, double them up, and do it all again.
Well, we don't want to do all of it again. Hopefully we can start this one without the caution, you know what I mean, without the contact.
Fingers crossed at the very least. And now the field gets set to double it back up, and we'll get ourselves back underway. Your top 3 rows is Bitts, Watts, Watson, Wachinski, Johnson, and Schaffner so far. Those are your top 3 rows at the time being. So far, biggest mover of the day. We haven't talked about that too much so far, but it is in fact Brian Watson, qualified in 13th place with a 30.153. He finds himself now running 3rd place because of everything that's been taking place over the last few laps.
Oh, those standings are going to shuffle around even more, especially as we get ready to go again. This track is notorious for having those cautions, breeding cautions, because there's just so many places. You're like a kid at Christmas time, you know. You can just, run down low, run down high, just go, go, go.
So coming around through turns 3 and 4. And last time by, we saw Noah Bitts and Adrian Watts get a massive lead from the rest of the field. You wonder if they will be able to potentially replicate that here on this restart. Green flag drops. Bitts certainly replicated it. Not so much for Adrian Watts. Already 3 car lengths clear by the time the hit start finish for Noah Bitts. Adrian Watts could find himself under some fire from Brian Watson pretty soon here if he isn't careful. Double file through turns 1 and 2. This time, no 3-wide action deeper in the field, and it looks like this time we'll escape turn 2 clean and green.
All right, side-by-side racing continues as we go on around coming up on 50 laps into this thing. Just everybody right now is just trying to find their groove, trying to get in line, trying to protect your car, because you don't want to end up wrecking. That's just not what anyone needs, especially this early on.
A huge check in the middle of the field started when Schaffner hit the wall, got out of shape. Hamilton ran into the back of the number 50, and that caused both drivers to start to tumble off. So now Schaffner's got rear end damage, and Hamilton has got front end damage as well for his Tucson Sound Art Chevrolet. So hasn't started well for Logan Hamilton for this second stage as we start to log some more green flag laps. He'll have to hope that maybe this field has some more struggles up the road, or that he can just hang on to these spots until the stage 2 caution. Of course, that is not coming up for about another 23 laps or so.
And just like that, Chris Johnson finds his way into the top 5.
Chris Johnson up to 5th place, right behind G&G teammate Greg Wachinski. Heads up Joshua Watson, looking high. He's been running up in the front of this thing throughout a lot of this race, and Watson had some damage from one of our ladder incidents. He is trying to potentially close his way back up to the top 3 to maybe contend for a stage 1 win before this stage is over. I don't think it's going to happen, though, for him, because he's got some pretty significant front right damage that he's struggling with.
Yeah, like damage on this track is just anything in the front end, or it's just really going to destroy your chances of being able to keep the draft even.
So single file this time around, it's looking a lot more civilized this time than the initial stage 2 restart was. Sometimes you just need that little bit of a kick to the back of the head, right, in order to kind of remember that it is a long race and you don't need to make all these moves really early in this one. So we now go single file racing. I'm still watching Watts and Noah Bitts. That gap has been steadily closing in. Noah Bitts had got such a good launch, but the gap didn't last for long as Joshua Watson pulling around the outside line of Chris Johnson, looking to take a 5th place away. Johnson gonna get clear, trying to push up, I think, side drives Watson, but Joshua Watson goes through to 5th.
Yeah, there's just really no need for Johnson to defend that position right now. He just wants to be around as we go through this second stage and into this last stage. The last stage is going to be the key, because these guys right now, you're able to just pretty much run flat out, because you got the end of that stage coming where you actually be able to get some fresh rubber. But that third stage, though, whoever saves their stuff, doesn't get beat up too much, and can figure out the best lines, they're going to be in the best spot to win this thing.
And watching Greg Wyszynski as well. The number 5 car has been trying to close up to Brian Watson in the number 3, in the number 84 in the number 3 position. But Wyszynski has been losing a bit of time to Joshua Watson as he has been looking a little bit more out of shape the last few laps up front. Look at the 2 JBR drivers thinking about maybe going for a swap. Watson looking on the outside of Adrian Watts this last time by. Down the front straightaway, looking high again. Might try to dive it off the corner. Doesn't get the run, though, this time around. Wyszynski having to slide up in front of Joshua Watson. Does Watson look low, or does he keep this one up high? He is going to look to stick it around the outside lane. I think trying to utilize that Larson line, right, to try to pull Greg Wyszynski in and get a run out of the corners. You see as well, Brian Watson now in the mix of this as well. 4th and 5th have caught your top 3, making it the top 5 all under a blanket at the moment. And that, of course, means it's going to be that much more intense in the ever-growing battle for a race lead and potentially a stage win as well. Coming around lap number 50 this time by. Noah Bitts looking high. Adrian Watts having to defend against Brian Watson as well for 2nd place, just in behind. So the 2 JBR teammates looks like they're going to start to battle now amongst themselves. That's going to allow G&G and the other JBR Chevrolet to close right on in. Watson up the inside of Adrian Watts. Has to back out, though, to avoid taking out that 0-8 Chevrolet. One thing you never want to do, especially in over racing, is wipe your teammate out when you're going for a potential stage win.
Yeah, nobody wants to see that. Hey, with 10 laps to go, I think it's go time, right? This is the time where you just kind of let it go, because these are going to be the last stage points that are going to be available, right?
Indeed, they will. The final stage points will be available on the night before it goes straight over to race points for the final 50, 60 or so laps in this race. And it looks like Josh Watson finally gets past and clear of Greg Wyszynski out of turn 2 last time by. Wyszynski's going to look down low for 3, but won't be able to carry the momentum through. Joshua Watson holds 4th place. And he is now clear to start trying to run down Adrian Watts, thanks to a bit more of the draft that he'll be able to reel in from these cars up the road from him. And it's worth noting as well, these guys are all catching Frank Flores in the number 28 Shake and Bake Dent Wizard Chevrolet, who has been having some struggles of his own so far. Of course, he was collected in that latest wreck, had to jerk his wheel hard left and slam the inside wall as a result. No bits. Going to go down the inside line as Frank Flores stays high and wide out of the way.
Now, what we're going to see start to happen now also, it's going to be lap down traffic. It makes it's just another dimension of things you have to deal with when you're trying to go around this track.
At least for the most part, in this series, a lot of these guys for the race lead do like to stay high and out of the way, which is, of course, great news for your race leaders. The fact that these lap cars are able to show so much respect to the guys up in the lead, it makes it a lot easier for them to continue to go about their own business and their own little battles. Battles on for the race lead. Brian Watson trying to go over-under on Noah Bitts through 3 and 4. Gets a run out of turn number 4, closing up to the front line. 87 could have a look at it, so it's a 4v4 battle just up the road for the race lead. Watson again looking high. Bitts hangs that one to the low side. Already from this aerial shot alone, look at how much the speed of it is out of these corners. When Brian Watson can close in so much down the back straightaway, just not enough to probably go for the actual overtake.
Patience, Grasshopper. I mean, I think he's got to sit right back in there, and he's just got to wait. He's got to go to school on the line. He's just got to keep closing the gap, and then right at the last couple of laps, that's when I think you're going to make your move.
And I think Noah Bitts weathered the worst of the storm. He's now starting to pull a little bit more of a gap over Brian Watson, and both of them are pulling away from P3. Speaking of P3, why don't we look down to Joshua Watson, who's in a fight at the moment with Greg Wyszynski. He's got Chris Johnson, G&G teammate of the Mustang, just in behind. So the Southern Spiral Pipe 48 looking to regain some lost time. Lost 2 points back to Kenny Powell under this last stage, meaning that gap down to just 47 points now as opposed to the 49 it was when this race started off. That ain't going to stop Chris Johnson, though, from trying to see if he can get up a couple of more spots, though. And, of course, he just really needs to finish well here tonight. He'll have this championship locked out in the bag.
Yeah, that shark smells blood in the water. Powell lap down as Flores puts himself in the position for the lucky dog or the free pass. So that's not going to help Powell's position at all. But hopefully be able to repair any damage that he hadn't been able to get done and try to stay in this thing.
Up high, Joshua Watson and Chris Johnson looking to battle as Johnson trying to make the run for fourth. Wachinski passed out Watson for fifth place this last time by through 1 and 2. And Watson's going to cover down low. Chris Johnson will have to maybe stick with his teammate. It's the aero push, right? That's the big problem these guys are having to worry about. The massive aero wash and the dirty air that these Gen 6 cars can produce with these high downforce, low horsepower packages just make it so difficult to properly get the hammer down out of these corners without having to push up into somebody else. And we heard Noah Bitts comment on this earlier tonight already when we interviewed him at the end of stage number 1. It is so unbelievably difficult to pass here, and we're seeing this play out in full force at the moment between Chris Johnson and Joshua Watson.
Yeah, I think Johnson his car doesn't seem to be handling as well as he'd want it to. It's going to make it interesting to see what happens as these stages get a little bit longer. That last stage, especially.
Indeed, that last stage is definitely going to be the big ticket question for sure. That's when we get pit strategy kind of splitting things up as well. Of course, estimated 47 laps on the fuel run. These stages have only been 30 laps apiece, so that makes it really, really easy for the fuel calculation to be done at least in this first stage. Of course, you of course can just run straight through to the end. You don't need to worry about fuel. It's really a question of when you come in for stage 3, how much fuel do you want to take?
Yeah, do you think we're going to see green flag pit stops in our future?
I wouldn't put it past these guys. I mean, we've been seeing a lot of green flag stops so far. We thought we'd see some in Nashville Fairground Speedway just 1 week ago. Ended up not happening. But we haven't seen quite a few of these races go green to the end when we hit stage 3. So it wouldn't surprise me to see these guys making those green flag stops in the middle of stage 3.
Yeah, that Nashville race turned out to be, it was exciting all the way down to the last lap.
It certainly was. I mean, you had thrilling battles everywhere you looked, and having that sort of thing here today as well. It's been a little bit more down to earth, I would say, this race than our Nashville race was, but that doesn't mean it hasn't been an entertaining one to watch. We've been watching these guys trying to make these moves, and I think at this point it's about the mind games, right? You have to get in your opponents ahead and make them make a mistake. You might not be able to get past them on just raw pace alone when you're on the same set of tires. I think it's when undercuts, overcuts, and so on and so forth definitely going to start to come into play. And as we do stage 3, that is going to come on up here in just a little while. It'll be 3 laps to go in stage 2 when we hit the line.
Oh, somebody's so happy to get tires. I bet you that, because, I mean, when these cars start going around there, once you get over 20 laps in them, like, sometimes it just feels like she's just dancing on the air, that dirty air, like you were saying earlier. So, good stage.
And down the back straightaway, it'll be 2 laps to go at the line. Pit road closes this time by as well. No Bit still has been able to keep Brian Watson at bay nicely in the battle for first place just at the road. Oh, heads up! Watson, a huge tank sniper, sends him into the outside wall in 4. And pit road closes, but that slap to the wall effectively kills Brian Watson's run for a potential stage win. No Bits is clear and green. Well out in front is nothing to worry about. Brian Watson, though, could be under fire from Adrian Watts here if he's not careful coming to the end of stage 2.
Yeah, that's those tires, that handling, the dirty air, it all comes together. That just is a recipe for disaster.
Final lap in stage number 2. Bits has cleared a lap car of Joshua Elliott. Brian Watson under fire from JBR teammate Adrian Watts for the second position. Watts gonna cut back to the low side. Goes for the undercut. Oh, look out! Gets into Watson. Who gets Wachinski? Oh, and the 2 teammates collide. Wachinski gets into it and the caution flies.
I can't believe what we just saw. Oh, that was amazing.
So unfortunate for Adrian Watts. Just got in with Brian Watson. Watch this one. Watson gets loose. Adrian Watts tags him, and that sends Watts around. The hit from Wojcinski is what finished him off. And the number 5 car still got into it, and I think that was Joshua Watson that just blitzed past around the outside line.
At this rate, we're not going to have any cars left to finish this thing.
Two teammates colliding. It is far from the first time this sort of thing has happened. And take another look at it here. Watch the 84 step the back end. It was already loose. There was that little tag and then that hit for Wojcinski. And unfortunately, Wojcinski, I think just avoided the worst of it there. But the two JBR cars effectively junked now as a result.
And I guess the rewards versus the gains and the risk, I don't understand what they really gained out of that at all. I mean, that's just a loss scenario.
It was a mistake, and that's all you can really say about that one. I mean, Brian Watson got loose, and unfortunately, Adrian Watts just couldn't react in time. That's all that was. It wasn't drivers racing hard. It's just the cars, the way they behaved, just came around on them, and unfortunately, Brian Watts wasn't able to hang on to it. So pit stops underway under this caution period. Once again, Bitts, your Stage 2 winner, led them down. And it looks as though No Bitts will also be leading them off of pit road. I'm noticing that Logan Hamilton has been sitting down in pit road for some time. I think he might have had some error on his pit stall, and in fact, that was the case. Had to come on down, and he'll get the thing back rolling again. So with yellow flag pit stops completed, why don't we see if we can't get in touch with your Stage 2 runner-up? We'll see if we can't potentially dial on Chris Johnson here in the G&G number 48. Chris, this is Nolan up in the booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Well, you squeak away with a Stage 2 P2, but you almost found yourself with a face full of JVR at the end of that second stage.
Yeah, I think I gotta change my underdrawers for that one. Not sure what happened. I was exiting and I just saw a pile up, and scared the living crap out of me.
Well, you managed to escape that one unscathed, and that gets you a second place in the second stage as well. So third stage coming on up. Obviously, pit stop's going to be already a factor that you no doubt are going to be considering. Do you already have a plan in mind for what you're going to be doing in Stage 3?
Knowing Noah, he's going to have a rocket of a car. Only way that I'm going to probably be able to pull this off is beat him in pits. We'll see what happens.
Pit strategies can take it, and the pit stops can take it away. So we'll see what you'll be able to do over there in Stage 3. Chris Johnson, before I let you go, anybody you'd like to shout out for your number 48?
Southern Spiral, of course, Brian Johnson, G&G, yourselves, everybody that makes this league go round.
And thank you, Chris Johnson, for taking the time to join us up at the broadcast booth. Congrats on a Stage 2 P2. Good luck in Stage 3.
Appreciate it.
Chris Johnson bringing us up for a little bit of a chat there in the G&G number 48. So, under caution for Stage 2. Why don't we take a quick 30-second break here or so? We'll be back in a few moments. And we are still under this caution period for stage number 2. Though coming to the end of it now with us about to get underway here for stage number 3. There is 66.8 laps to go. It'll be 66 when we take the green flag. And that, of course, means 47 laps. That's your field one of these guys is going to have to try to hit. 51.5 points is the new points difference between Johnson and Kenny Powell. Another 8 points. Chris Johnson walks out of Chicagoland a champion. Pace car down and in. And we get set to do it all over again. Noah Betts comes to the green flag, and we are back underway for the Chicagoland Speedway. And already Betts has gotten away well. Johnson picks up second, Watson third, Severa fourth. Gary Adamson able to hang on to fifth place for the time being. You got Kyle Green has done a good job of working his way up after his attritions earlier on. He finds himself now back up into sixth place and is trying to charge up to the back end of the Englishman. They just had a battle that sorted itself out for third place. That's a very tucked in line behind Joshua Watson. Now Kyle Green looking at the inside of Gary Addison, trying to go for fifth. Can't get the proper speed he needed, though, out of the tri-oval down to the front straightaway. Oh, hands up, Watson, sideways, hang on to it. And Joshua Watson saves the car. We stay green. And you got Gribachinski working that outside lane as well, and you still have got Joshua Watson down on the bottom side, this time running down onto the apron. That's what caught him out the last time through turn one. Just clipped the apron through turn two, and that's what shot the 0-1 around. He's not going to make the same mistake, though, 2 laps in a row. Wojcinski pulls around the outside lane. He's trying to fight it out here for the 7th place, and Wojcinski this time gets clear into turn 3.
Got a little side-by-side racing going on back for 10th position, as these guys are just still trying to find their way around the track. You know, I think now really guys are going to have to figure out, you know, we hammer down or do we kind of lift and love a little bit?
And just up the road of these guys, got Schofter looking to do battle with Kyle Green. The battle for 5th and 6th is on. It's got 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th all in behind with it as well. Wojcinski looking to go side by side with Schofter now. Here comes Watson thinking 3 wide high. No space, though, for the JBR Chevrolet to make the move. So Josh Schofter going to have to bail out to the apron as Watson goes high, almost 3 wide on the front straightaway. Schofter loses 2, and Joshua Watson rocketing away through turn 1, and Gribachinski has no speed under the G&G number 5.
It's a battle for track position because these guys know the further up in the line you get, I mean, it's a lot easier to be up front than it is to play catch-up. You know, so
Green slid up in front of Watson that last time by, but Joshua Watson is able to still pull around, and he's alongside now with Kyle Green entering turn 1. Can that number 76 Chevrolet get clear? Oh, slides up! Look out! Slide job at the 76! Joshua Watson cuts back down low, and he'll take a 5th place away in the turn number 3. I don't think Kyle Green's going to be able to fight this one out.
I think somebody else is getting no shorts on that one.
So in the heads-up drag race down this front straightaway, Watson still ahead through turns 1 and 2. Can Kyle Green run the outside lane to potentially take 5th place back? Watson clips the apron. That causes him to bobble and check up. That lets Kyle Green pull back in front. Here's Adrian Watts. Logan Hamilton in the mix of things as well. This could get spicy now. Got 2 of these newcomers, 2 of the series rookies looking to run on the outside lane now, trying to pick up spots, and a couple of the more seasoned drivers that have been racing since the green flag dropped back in race number 1. Kyle Green looking to go maybe around the outside lane. Don't think it's going to quite work for him, though. I mean, Josh Watson has shown he is a force to reckon with, even if he's on the less than optimal lane on the bottom.
Yeah, but the most amazing thing about this is we're just over halfway in this race, and you know, here we are having epic battles for position as if we had 10 to go. So, I mean, definitely putting on a show for us here tonight.
Putting on a show indeed. Hamilton scrambles to the inside lane. He's trying to pick up some spots. Look at the speed that 12 has. Closing up to Watson and Kyle Green. Almost went 3 wide into turn 1, but 3 into 1 often doesn't work, and Hamilton thought better of it, backed out instead. So we remain side by side for 5th and 6th. They've been alongside with each other for about 4 laps straight now. Kyle Green not willing to give up this spot at all, but I think this time Watson has it secured, clears out of 4. He'll be able to push up. Here comes Hamilton charging up the inside lane, trying to get a run on green.
He is literally just swinging that car in and out of those turns, using it for all the momentum that he can get, trying to secure his position and even get a little bit more leverage. Very interesting driving line that he's using there.
This time, though, Kyle Green able to weather the storm, bumps Hamilton down one spot. He'll find himself a bit now further down the order. So Logan Hamilton could find himself going on defense against Adrian Watson in a minute if he can't get himself resorted and go back at Kyle Green. He's trying to. I'll give him that. I mean, he is looking high, looking low, trying everything he can. This time, Hamilton going to experiment a little bit. Tries the outside lane. He's been running the bottom so far a lot throughout the course of the night, so he's going to opt to take the top instead. Now cuts back down low. And he'll try to dive one up the inside of Kyle Green into turn 3. Is it going to be enough? Don't think so. Watch him start to push up the track. Kyle leaves him no room to go, so Green holds that one around the outside lane.
Yeah, but you have Schaffner and Watts both watching this battle unfold in front of them, and they're just using the opportunity to just kind of keep inching forward and, you know, saving their tires, but still trying to gain position.
You see Adrian Watts now maybe being able to complete a pass around Josh Schaffner, who had the upper hand out of the front straightaway in the battle for 8th the last time by. So you got Hamilton and Green looking to do battle just up the road. Then you got Watts and Schaffner there kind of under a bit of a blanket as well. And actually heads up Paul Olson, the 43 G&G Chevrolet, looking a bit antsy in behind as well. He's been kind of making a few little looks for these positions as well. You have to wonder how long it'll be before Paul Olson decides to throw his hat into the ring.
Hey, just awesome to say Olsen in the top 10. Paul Olsen, that team's had some bad luck in the last couple of races, but here they are sitting in 10th place, which is, that's really got to feel good for those guys here tonight.
I imagine it feels great for them, right, being able to find themselves up in the top 10. I mean, Paul Olson is one of those drivers who can have some very up and down seasons, and we've seen this in the past. He's been as high up as the top 5 at one point, and he's been as far down as 2 laps before the stage 1 even comes to a close. You saw Adrian Watts really cut off Schaffner there out of turn 2. That kind of checked up Schaffner just a touch, and Watts able to power through on the inside lane. Once again, Hamilton ripping the outside lane, the Larson line, and he's able to get a bit of a drive out of these corners, and you can see what he's doing, right? Using the outside lane and then going as far down on the track as he can afford, using every little bit of the apron. He's trying to get a run on Kyle Green, and he potentially have the run here. Adrian Watts still going to have a thing or two to say about that. The JBR Chevrolet up the inside, pushing up to the wall, and Hamilton going to have to use the draft for Kyle Green to pull ahead and get clear by the time they hit turn 3.
It's going to be interesting as we get through, go a little bit deeper into the race to see what happens when Hamilton can't throw and take that line that he wants. What happens if somebody does force him to say stay high or stay low?
Now Hamilton's alongside with Kyle Green and pulls the nose ahead by the time they get to turn 1. Is this enough for Hamilton to pull away? Don't think it will be. Look at the drive Green gets mid-corner. I think it got the throttle too early, though. Had to check out. Now we go 3 wide. Schaffner high. Hamilton middle. Watts down low. The 08 JBR Chevrolet going to power through. Picks one up on Logan Hamilton. Josh Schaffner just escapes the melee. So Hamilton went from going up 1 spot to losing 2.
Yeah, just looking at the way Hamilton's car is starting to handle now, he's having quite a bit of fall off. So maybe he cooked his books a little bit too soon. I don't know. Maybe he can prove me wrong, but it's just interesting to see how this is going to play out.
You saw him get into the back end of Adrian Watts as well as Schaffner throws one down the inside of Kyle Green. And Green going to hang that one up top. Schaffner gets clear. That's one less driver now that Josh Schaffner's going to have to worry about, as he'll pick up a solid 6th place. I think Kyle Green's fallen off a little bit, and I can tell you right now that Logan Hamilton is struggling to hang with these guys. He's doing everything he can, right? But it's worth noting that Hamilton is a lot better on a shorter run than he is on a longer run. So he is hoping there's another caution at some point so he can potentially work his way up and have another go. Adrian Watts tried to go with the inside of Kyle Green. It's not going to work. And how about Hamilton bump drafting Kyle Green down the back straightaway to help him get clear of Watts for 3 and 4?
These two have been battling so close here all night long, and I think they feel comfortable with each other enough that, you know, maybe he can just stick it in there a little bit like that on them.
And Logan Hamilton going to go around the outside lane once again, trying to keep Adrian Watts at bay. It got physical a couple of laps ago, and now Hamilton trying to hang with it. And I think now Adrian Watts going to have to tuck in line. No space for the 0-8 to make his way up. And Olsen has just been biding his time, right? Just waiting patiently in the wings for one of these drivers to mess up so he can maybe take up a free spot.
And you can't really blame them. I think at this point it's going to be whose car is in the best condition as we get towards the end of this thing. We're almost in the pit window, aren't we?
Well, a little bit off from that one at the moment. Well, we're technically within the pit window. It's 45 laps to go in this race, so technically you could be able to make it to the end if you come down now. But they've only been out there for about 23 laps, so unless you wanted to go for an extreme undercut, just go to the end of the race. Oh, wrong contact behind! Olsen into the wall! Got into with Adrian Watts down the front straightaway. It gets physical again for the JBR driver, and this time I think it was just a case of one coming up, one going down. Olsen slammed the wall as a result, entering turn one. That shocked the 43 around, but he managed to hang on to it. We stay green. That got a little bit close for comfort, though, to being yet another caution on the day.
Yeah, Olsen pedal. That's how he saved that thing. He was sideways and smiling, though. Well, a good save for him. They're really going to need that. Keep that car intact so they can still be here towards the end of this thing.
And so it looks like these battles starting to split apart for the time being. About 24 going to 25 laps now on this run. And that, of course, does mean it is going to be a little bit of a ways yet before we get that first round of green flag pit stops on the night. You look up to Noah Bitts, who still leads this race a long way now. 1.5 seconds from Chris Johnson. Chris Severa sits just behind, 3.5 seconds back from your race leader. And so far, the guy that has still moved up the most positions has been Gary Adamson, plus 10 now on the day. Started 14th, up to 4th place now. That's tied with Kyle Green, actually, who started 17th. He's up to 7th place at the moment.
Yeah, Gary's just slowly picking his way through this field because, that is the strategy. You just got to, like I'll say it again, I'm probably sounding like a broken record, but you have to be available to win this thing at the end. If you're not available, then you won't have a shot. The 08 JBR Chevrolet is looking to go back at Logan Hamilton. I think Hamilton lost a bit of time the last few laps. That's allowed for Adrian Watts to start to close in the gap. Look at Logan Hamilton with a huge head of steam. Kyle Green tried to cover him off. Wasn't happening though. Oh, push it up. Kyle Green gets muscled out of line. Then troubles for Kyle Green that last time. But was really, really slow on the pit entry. Shockingly so. Hamilton almost wrecked him as a result. And they're still going to be neck and neck down to the turn number one with Adrian Watts waiting in the wings now just behind. I think at this point, Watts should just wait until Hamilton and Kyle Green sort their differences out right as Hamilton scrambles down low to try to get around him. And Adrian Watts gets around Hamilton, trying to look at the inside of Green now for 3. I don't think he made that move soon enough. This is a very intense battle. These 3 guys are out here for position. This is what we'll pay good money for. I mean, almost 3 wide racing here, right?
Trying 4, and Hamilton looked for the inside just as Green looked for the outside lane, but that's only going to put the 76 and the 12 side by side now as Watts pulls away and around. So Logan Hamilton is going to have to hang with it just a touch more, I'd imagine. He'll be sticking this one at the rear end. He'll be trying to close on up to Kyle Green and Adrian Watts. So this battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th, nowhere close to being sorted yet.
No, it's not. And I'm thinking, man, I'm feeling like we're going to have some fuel stops here pretty soon.
Hamilton looking high. Green clears, sweeps up and cross right in front of Hamilton's bumper. Hamilton already going low. Green can't cover. And Logan Hamilton has the drive for turn number 3. Clips the apron. Watch the push-up as a result. And once again, Green pulling the outside lane. That inside line just has no speed under that anymore, and that's what's really costing Hamilton here, right? I mean, he's trying everything to find his way up the inside line, but he just can't get any kind of momentum from the inside groove off of these corners. That's what's killing him at the moment.
Yeah, I think he's going to start to go up high and try to come back down low, see if he can get some momentum and gain some ground. He's just got to try to figure it out. But slowly, as these two battle, man, that 8 car is just pulling away.
It certainly is. He is just pulling away so far, and we'll be able to see how this could play out as this race goes along. So Logan Hamilton looking to go with it here, looking high on Kyle Green, but I think starting to split apart just a little bit more. As this battle continues to shake on up, why don't take a quick step away. Let's ride on board with Logan Hamilton for a few laps as we watch the battle for 8th and 7th develop right in front of our very eyes. Hamilton up the inside this time has Kyle Green on the ropes. Going to be a drag race to the line. As we say this, green flag pit stops underway. You saw Gary Adamson was into pit road. Richard Elliott's in at the moment. And as well as that, you got Joshua Watson currently down and in the lane. And as Hamilton gets squeezed out by Kyle Green through 1 and 2. That means it's only a matter of time for this battle for 6th and 7th now comes down to pit road. I tell you what, Al, it almost got physical between the two of them coming around through turns 1 and 2 that last time by. Adrian Watts bails out and takes his trip down to pit road.
Now, these pit strategies are this is what's gonna come into play, because someone's gonna stay out and they're gonna lose it, and that's gonna change the entire outcome. I just pulled that right there. That's my card. I'm saying it.
Olsen is down to pit road as well. Just now, Noah Bitts, race leader, is into pit road for service. And for his one and only scheduled green flag pit stop on the day. Schaffner also coming down. And on cue, here comes Kyle Green and Logan Hamilton. The battle for 8th coming to pit road. And this could be a battle who can... Oh my gosh, both drivers locking up all 4 tires on the brakes at the end of pit road. So Hamilton line astern with Kyle Green in pit road. This will be down between how good their pit stops are on the exit of their pit boxes.
This is definitely some exciting racing, because, I mean, you're going to win or lose this thing on pit road, especially if there's not another caution. It's going to be who can get in, who can get out the fastest, the cleanest without actually having a penalty. So, I mean, here we go. This is where the battle is going to be won, right off pit road.
And look at how fast Kyle Green was out of pit road. The 76 car gone by a country mile, took 4 tires and fuel. Hamilton stopped in his box for a long time. And I wonder, did the 89 car get caught speeding on pit road? He was really quick on entry. And you know what? I think he might have. Pit road speed is 50 miles an hour. You know how fast he's going to hit those cones, Al? 65. He was caught speeding. A stop and hold for Hamilton costs him the top 10.
You're going to win or lose it on pit road. So, hey, so here we go. Let's watch and see what happens. This Johnson is in the lead right now, just trying to solidify his position as our champion, but he is showing the way.
A devastating stop and hold ends Logan Hamilton's race early, it would seem. And I can see Chris Johnson and Chris Severo looking to do battle. These are 2 G&G drivers, so once again, the Gas and Go teammates look to do battle with each other. We are now in the dying stages of this race. 30 laps to go at the line. So this could get interesting here as we continue to watch these various battles pick on up as the race goes along, which instantly just got passed up by Adrian Watts. I think the complexion of this race just got kicked into high gear, right?
Absolutely, because right now it's going to be, what do you say to the young driver? Get back in there, get your head back in the game. We're not out of this yet. It's still anybody's race. So even though he's a lap down, we still got quite a bit of green flag racing left.
And this is what I figured this race might turn into, right? You'll have those 1 and 2 incidents near the restarts, and then it'll be green from there on to the end. And that's how it's been, right? You've had the 1 yellow flag in stage 2, and that was for our only crash so far that we've seen on the day that actually brought out a yellow flag. Of course, technically you could call Logan Hamilton's slide another wreck as well, but they did bring out a yellow flag, and it was one heck of a save for the number 12 that saw him skirting into the infield. That was back with just about 6 laps to go in the opening stages of this race. So at the moment, I believe we're still waiting on a few drivers to come down, and check that, everybody has come down to pit road, save for Frank Flores. So let's take a rundown top to bottom of your Tucson Sound Art running order thus far. Noah Bitts, your race leader, and 5.6 seconds back is Joshua Watson. Gary Adamson is in third with Chris Johnson down in fourth. Chris Severa is in 5th place with Josh Shofter 6th. Kyle Green is 7th with Adrian Watts in 8th. Currently in a battle with Kyle Green, as I mentioned that, as Watts is side-by-side, picking up 7th place from Kyle Green. Wachinski is 9th, Powell in 10th, Hamilton 11th, Olsen 12th, Flores 13th, Watson 14th, Elliott 15th, Enrique in 16th with Darren Mullins in 17th place. Both those bottom 2 drivers out of this race early on. So the battle is on for 7th place as Kyle Green gets set to try to go at it again with Adrian Watts.
And go at it they will. These two right now are going to battle until the checker flag comes out. Final pit stops made. Everybody right now is putting their head down and we're going to see which dog gets the rabbit.
You saw how much Kyle Green was pinching Adrian Watts in through turns 1 and 2, not letting the 0-way come up the bottom at all. And that's what Kyle Green needed to do, right? It prevented Adrian Watts from getting a good drive through the back straightaway. And I think that means he might be able to hold on to the battle now down the front as well. Potentially get him down the back straight this next time by. So Green, play a bit more of a risky game, right? You have to have a lot of faith that the guy behind or below you is going to push up and wipe you out. As a result, Green is clear. Adrian Watts, though, going to maybe dive it up the inside of turn 3 again. And in fact, he will. Green's not done with this battle yet.
Side by side, they go round and around. No one's going to give in. Nobody's going to give up. They're just going to have to run it out and see which driver messes up first. And then which driver's able to capitalize on that slip.
So I'm going to put a bit of a question to you. How many laps more do you think they're going to be side-by-side with? They've been side-by-side for about the last 3 laps now. I'm thinking another 4, honestly.
I'm just thinking that this can't be good for either one of them, because if you have your line, I have my line, you're taking away from something if you're running side by side. There we go. They're dropping back in.
Well, my 4-lap prediction immediately gets smashed to bits. Just like my dreams of actually trying to become a real racing driver. So you got Adrian Watts now running in 8th place with Kyle Green 7th. And Green is going to be able to hold on to 7th place for now. Watts, I think, just had enough of fighting it out, right? You don't want to burn your stuff early. I think you might try to just follow in line at the moment. Maybe learn a bit from what Kyle Green is doing. See if we can pick up a plan to actually get him in 1 lap, which could be the last one.
Speaking of your NASCAR dreams getting blown to bits, Bitts is really putting on a clinic here today. He's had the car to beat all day, and he's just got his nose down, and I don't think anybody's going to be able to catch him.
6 seconds clear at the line for Chris Johnson, and Brian Watson having some struggles. You see him really slow back straightaway. And Brian Watson actually hit the outside wall out of turn 2. In fact, he did. Watson clipped the outside wall, and he just jammed that car into the outside wall, trying to just keep it out of the way of Noah Bitts and Paul Olsen just behind him.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the first time Watson's actually hit that wall too today. So that's definitely going to affect his car one way or the other.
I think it was the turn 4 wall the last time around. This time it was the turn 2 wall, so he's hit both ends of the track now. Battle for third place is looking to pick on up. Joshua Watson under fire from Chris Severa. Severa's going to go up the inside of 3 and 4. Looks like Watson will just give that one up. The JBR Chevrolet not wanting to fight that one out too much. I find that interesting.
Well, I wouldn't fight with Severa either. He is definitely shown that he has a propensity to swap paint. You know, at this stage of the game, you know, you say, is it really worth it? Or you just, you know, hey, go ahead, bud. I'll see you in about 10 laps or so.
Well, they're catching up to Brian Watson now, so it could get a little bit interesting if Watson puts it into the wall for a third time this race. I don't think he'll do that this time around, though. Manages to keep it out of the outside wall of turn 4. I didn't say that. He almost got into the safer barrier, just as I was mentioning that. But that allowed Joshua Watson to get a huge run up on Chris Severa. Look at how much he closes in. But yet again, just as we've seen time and time again this race, just inches back from being able to make a proper move.
It's going to be interesting, though, if these guys are able to catch Johnson, because even though he has the championship kind of sewed up, he is still not a guy that's just going to roll over and let somebody go by him, you know. So I think we still have a chance to at least see one more caution.
I have to agree with you. We have definitely got a lot of potential to see just another caution before this race is over. And how many times have we seen these late race cautions definitely cause some late race drama throughout this race as well? How about Gorczynski and Kenny Powell? They've been having a bit of a scrap the last little while. This is for the last spot on the lead lap for 10th and 9th. And Logan Hamilton is actually up the road from these drivers as well. He's already 1 lap down, showing just how much Logan Hamilton has fallen down the order. You can actually see that black car just the tail end of the shot. That was Noah Bitts, race leader, catching up to the tail end of these drivers. So I think that kind of shows you just how far ahead Noah Bitts is at the moment from guys like Chris Johnson, who are still 5 seconds back.
Yeah, but lap traffic, you know, it's just the thing that scares you is not knowing what's going to happen. You know, I see where that car is. I'm coming up on them, but you know, sometimes you just come up on guys and they get in dirty air, and next thing you know, they're in the wall and then they're into you. So it's still, you know, this is just as treacherous as it is to say if you were going side by side or 3 wide.
$14 laps remaining. This time by at the line for Noah Bitts. And he remains unchallenged up for the race lead. There is still 1 more race remaining on the season. And it is, of course, going to be at the Richmond Raceway in just 1 week's time for what I anticipate will be about a 200-lap event. And Richmond, I have to say, I think it's a favorite short track for both of us.
Oh, yeah, man, I love Richmond. That's the quintessential short track for Saturday night racing. So, you know, I think we're going to see a lot more cautions than we did today, and it's going to be definitely going to be a heck of a show.
Can't be, you know, discounted, you know, or played down just how entertaining the Saturday Night Series has been so far. I mean, we talked about it before. This series has, despite having smaller field sizes generally, has almost been more exciting than the Thursday Night Cup Series on a regular basis, which shows that I think the level of competition you have in the Tucson Sounder Cup Series here is just that much greater, right? You get a lot more guys that, while there's some, you know, performance spreads from top to midfield to bottom, everybody within those little groupings is so much more evenly matched than you got over in the Butt Kicker Cup Series at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, and it seems like these guys definitely aren't afraid to race each other hard. I mean, that's definitely one thing that we've seen week in and week out with this series. These guys are not afraid to get in there and mix it up, and it really doesn't even matter what lap it is. They're just good, hard racing.
At the moment, 2nd, 3rd, 4th remains the closest grouping of cars on track. There'll be 10 laps to go this time by. Chris Severa has been trying to close up to Chris Johnson so far. I don't know if he'll be able to properly get there, though. I think the bigger question, though, is where does Chris Johnson sit in relation to Kenny Powell, right? I mean, Johnson at the moment is 2nd place. He needs to still get.
Powell's in 9th, you know. He's still back there, you know. He was a lap down. He had some significant damage, able to get that damage fixed and still stay on the lead lap, you know. So He's in ninth place.
And there's 51.5 points, it's worth noting, still separating these two drivers, right? And that is the very crucial factor. Chris Johnson needs to get, if I'm doing this math correctly, 58 points total up to Kenny Powell, and he'll be clean to the good. And at the moment, it's 51.5 points. So if he gets 8 more points, that half point he's gotten now, that'll make the difference between him not winning the championship and potentially walking away from one going into Richmond.
Yeah, I like your math. I'm glad you did the math instead of me, because if I was doing the math, I think everybody would be a lot more confused than we are right now. But speaking of math, I'm just waiting on Severa to catch up with Johnson. I just want to see how this plays out. And that gap is it's still so slight, but yet it's right there.
So as it sits, I've just been running a few more numbers just in my own little head here. Okay, I'll admit I had a bit of help with the calculator as Watson gets into the outside wall. The way it sits right now, Chris Johnson walks out of Chicagoland Speedway a champion. The only way it does not is if Kenny Powell closes up to Adrian Watts, but there's almost 10 seconds separating them. So the more realistic option is that Chris Johnson loses out on second place back to Chris Severa. That's the only way, realistically, that Powell remains in this title fight coming into Richmond.
Yeah, and Powell also just slipped the lap down. So, yeah, Johnson's championship to lose.
At this point, Chris Johnson has definitely won this thing just by, consistency alone. He has not had the best of, results so far. He has only had one race win throughout all of this year. But he has had 8 top 5s as a result so far, and he is one of only 2 drivers that have started all 10 races this season. The only other one with him being that of Frank Flores. So it's consistency, right? It's just turning up on a regular basis that has helped to win Chris Johnson a potential championship here tonight.
Yeah, and consistency is key. I mean, that's the reason why NASCAR is in the current points setup that they are. Well, this is the second one because Matt Kenseth won a championship and didn't win any races that year. So consistency. You're right.
Five laps remaining. It'll be 4 to go this time by at the line. And the gap has slowly been closing on in between Noah Bitts and Chris Johnson. It has not been nearly enough, though, to matter so far. The gap is down to just 5.6 seconds, make it up to 5.8 by the time they get back to start-finish. So it's been slowly closing in by a couple of hundredths every lap, but not enough to really matter. And this means that Bitts is getting sent to walk off with the race win. The only way Johnson gets the win is at the moment is if he's like 2 seconds faster every lap than the Noah Bitts is. And that, unfortunately, it's not going to happen.
Well, that last series did go probably a little bit less. I thought it would be a little bit more eventful, but yeah, it was still a good race.
Joshua Watson looking around the outside of Chris Severa. Battle still going on for positions. This one is for third. Watson got the outside lane away from Severa. Coming around through 3 and 4 that last time by. Severa looking a bit loose on the bottom side. Watson going to pull around, though, and will be able to pick up the final podium position with just 2 laps left on the clock.
2 to go as Watson comes around Severa one last time.
And white flag is ready and is now being waved by Barney the Flagman as Noah Bitts gets set to start his final trip around. Kyle Green and Adrian Watts also in a battle for 8th and 7th place. Green looking to go for some last-minute glory for himself up the inside of Adrian Watts for 1 and 2 and pulls around and clears Adrian Watts, who will try to fight it back. They've still got 1 lap to duke this out. Even after they get back around to take the white flag themselves, they are now the last drivers on the lead lap. Look back just behind them, though, to Noah Bitts. who is coming around through 3 and 4. In his first ever Tucson Sounder Cup Series start, it's a race win of the AutoZone 200 for Noah Bitts. But for Chris Johnson, out of turn 4, it's not a race win, but it is a championship. Chris Johnson, your 2021 Tucson Sounder Cup Series champion by just half a point over Kenny Powell. Those half points, once again proving every last one matters.
Congratulations, not only to Noah Bitts for putting on a stellar performance here today, but also to Chris Johnson for his championship bid. Great race here tonight, and yeah, it did not disappoint. Did not disappoint at all.
So with Noah Bitts getting set to burn it down on the front straightaway, we'll take a look at your official post-race results of the AutoZone 200. Noah Bitts, your race winner in his first ever start in the Saturday Night Cup Series. Chris Johnson, your reigning champion now, sits in second place. Joshua Watson is third, with Chris Severa fourth, Schaffner fifth, Adamson sixth, Kyle Green in seventh. Just besting Adrian Watts in the battle for seventh, with Watts finishing eighth, last driver on the lead lap. Now it's Kenny Powell in ninth, with Greg Wyszynski down in 10th, Al.
Logan Hamilton, 11th. Paula Ocean in 12th. Frank Flores, 13th. Brian Watson, Richard Elliott, Pedro Enrique, and Darren Mullins rounds out our field here for this evening.
And, of course, with all the drivers top to bottom now gone through for your official running order, Noah Bitts is still burned down on the front straightaway, so we'll start from the bottom. Why not? We'll work our way up. We'll actually do it this way. We'll go third place, race winner, and then, of course, new champion. So we'll start it off here, potentially with Joshua Watson in just a moment. We'll see if we can maybe dial on up the number 01 machine coming up to join us here in third place. Final step on the podium for yourself, Joshua. A solid race so far for you. Couldn't quite run down Chris, though, for second.
Nah, we had a little mishap there at the first caution of stage 2 with a wheel lockup that kind of made us scrub the wall and got a little damage, and team did a good job on repairing it, and we were just fighting that a little bit, having to try to loosen the car up because it tightened it up some. But overall, to come back third and whatnot, overall it was a good day.
We came into this race 12th place in the point standings with a solid run here, and of course with Matthew Terrell and Joshua O'Connor not being present, you look set to rock it up potentially into the top 10 of the point standings. Do you look set to potentially maintain that in the season finale?
Oh yeah, hopefully we'll be able to make it. We got some things coming up, but if we can get up there and be able to hold it, that would be nice, especially being the first league season and whatnot. We've had some ups and downs here trying to work through some stuff, but I think we're starting to kind of get a grasp on things and going in the right direction.
And of course, one more race at the Richmond Raceway coming up for us in just 1 week's time. What's your thoughts coming over to the 3/4 mile short track?
I love Richmond. It's really a driver's track. Very easy to overdrive and overheat the rear tires and get loose, especially coming off of 2. With the way the corner tightens up there with the straight back straightaway, and then being able to arc it off of 4 with the arced front straightaway. So it definitely presents some challenges. You can get the high side to work there if you have the right setup. We've been able to do it in some past races before, but it should be a fun one. I like Richmond, and I like just the short tracks and the driver style tracks in general.
And it's been a pleasure being able to talk to you once again. Before I let you go, though, Joshua, who helps you to be fast in your JBR 01?
I'd like to thank all my teammates, Brian, Adrian, and Richard, Ryko, setups, Don Adams at Design Studio for all the paint schemes on all the team cars, all my family for their support and everything, and believe that's everybody. If I forgot anybody, I'd like to thank everybody else. Thank you to you guys for the broadcast, and Kenny for putting this league on.
Thank you, Josh, for taking time to join us up in the broadcast booth. Solid run for you today. Hopefully you'll be able to follow it up with one more in the season finale at Richmond.
Thank you, guys.
As Joshua Watson bringing it home in third place. We'll skip one podium step. We'll be coming back down to step number 2 in just a few moments because, of course, we'll save the best for last. We'll talk to Noah Bitts now, your race winner at the end of the night. So, Noah, you come home a race winning your first ever start in the Tucson Soundar Cup Series. How did it feel rocking it away with a 6+ second gap?
Tell you what, it feels good. This was a bad unit tonight. It was unstoppable. It just got faster and faster.
It seemed to get faster and faster as the night went on, to say the very least. I mean, you had yourself a solid run as well. And I imagine you're going to be looking forward to potentially have some more solid performances. Do you plan to race more with us here in this Tucson Soundar Cup Series going forward?
Yeah, it's quite possible. I might jump in a few more races. The racing was good. It was fun racing with Chris and Joshua and I think it was Adrian. That was a good race. Really clean up front. So yeah, I'll probably be back for a few more races.
And if you do find yourself coming back, do you have any goals on what you might want to accomplish in this Tucson Soundar Cup Series? Because you got a champion that might be looking to be dethroned here next season.
Well, if I'm not doing it full time, I'm just here to try and get as many wins as I can and have fun and not worry about the points and just have a good race with all these guys. But if I try to do it every week, then yeah, that's definitely what I'll be going for.
Well, fingers crossed, we'll at least be seeing you back on the track at least a few more times, if not full time. Noah, it's a pleasure as always seeing you being able to put out these good performances out on track. Before I let you go, though, who would you like to shout out for your number 87?
Yeah, I can't thank Frontline enough. These guys are really great. It might be a good start to a long relationship with them and hopefully a lot more wins and take this momentum and put it towards Richmond and see what we can do Thursday night.
And thank you, Noah, for taking the time to join us here tonight from Victory Lane. Congrats on a race win. Best of luck. Hopefully next week at Richmond, or if not that, well, then in the Thursday Night Cup Series coming up at the same track.
Thank you very much.
That was Noah Bitts joining us up here in the broadcast booth from Victory Lane. And now we move down to the true winner at the end of the day. Chris Johnson joins us up at the broadcast booth. And Chris, you leave tonight, second place on the podium, but you also leave a champion by just half a point over teammate Kenny Powell. That has got to feel good with much less pressure on your shoulders coming into Richmond.
Oh, yeah. I hate Richmond. I don't like the look of it. I don't like how it drives. I'm glad I don't have to worry about it no more.
And of course, how would you sum up the season so far? You were one of only 2 drivers that actually made all 10 starts so far. Do you think that kind of helped you to get yourself a solid championship here tonight?
Yeah, I joined this Saturday league just for kicks and giggles, to get on and have fun. I wasn't really, going for points, and it just ended up me up top, which, it's fine and all, but, it's not about the points. It's about getting out here and driving against some awesome drivers and making some good races.
And of course, you mentioned you're not a big fan of Richmond, but I'm assuming we'll still be able to expect to see you racing out there at Richmond in just 1 week's time. What do you think are some of the challenges that could be when we come around there in just 1 week's time?
Richmond is always a changing track. They added a little bit of grip to it, so it's not as slick as it once used to be. So you got a little bit more traction, but all around you gotta just drive it perfect. It's hard to pass. You just keep your head on your shoulders and just drive it straight.
Well, fingers crossed you'll be able to come away with at least a solid finishing position to end the season out on a high. Before I let you go, though, Chris, anybody you'd like to shout out for your G&G 48?
Of course, Southern Spiral Pipe, Kenny Powell, yourself, Nolan, Rob, Al, all y'all up in the booth, and of course G&G, Chris C and Brian Johnson are setup guys, and all around great team.
And thank you, Chris, for taking the time to join us here tonight. Congratulations on a championship from Chicagoland, and best of luck next week in Richmond.
Thank you, sir.
That was Chris Johnson bringing it home in second place for the race, but of course taking home a trophy tonight from the championship for the Tucson Soundar Cup Series. So, Al, 1 race remaining. It's at the Richmond Raceway. What do you think we can expect coming over into the season finale 2021?
I think we can expect a lot of side-by-side paint swapping, just good old-fashioned Saturday night short track racing. I'm so excited. I probably won't sleep until next Saturday.
Well, fingers crossed, and there will be a thriller. If tonight is anything to go by, as well as the last few weeks, we will absolutely be having ourselves a solid race so far throughout the course of these final 200 or so laps on the season. For now, though, from Chicagoland Speedway, I'm Abidol Lampo with Alfonso Nixon beside me in the commentary box, Rob Melnick down behind the cameras for tonight's race. Chris Johnson leaves tonight a champion, still trying to go for that last little bit of glory in Richmond in 1 week's time.